All right, today we're going to talk about lesson 3, reflections. This will be the second transformation that you are learning. So yesterday we talked about translations, and today we're going to talk about reflections. So the definition of a reflection is a flip or transformation in which a figure is reflected in a line called the line of reflection. A reflection creates a mirror image. So this is really important. We always want to see a mirror image as if we were looking in a mirror of the original figure. So you can see in the first example that we have a line of reflection going between the red and blue shape. And that line of reflection shows the mirror image of shape 1, the red shape, flipped over the line of reflection to the blue shape. So let's take a look at the first 3 examples. Which of the following transformation represents a reflection? So when we look at number 1 and highlight our line of reflection, and we take a look at the red shape, and then move it over the line of reflection by flipping it, we can see that the blue shape is not flipped to its mirror image, that it's actually slid over the line of reflection, and therefore we can call it a translation. Take a look at example 2. Highlight your line of reflection. We're going from the red to the blue, and even when we flip that red triangle over that line of reflection, we can see that this one again is slid across the line of reflection, therefore making it a translation. Look at example 3. Your line of reflection between the red and blue shape does show that that red trapezoid was in fact flipped its mirror image over the line of reflection, and therefore we can call it a reflection. So now let's use that definition to apply it to a coordinate plane. So each coordinate plane is going to have a figure already drawn on it, and this one is JKL. You are going to flip it according to the directions. So in this one, it says to flip the figure across or reflect the figure across the x-axis. So let's highlight our x-axis. Pretty important because we don't want to end up flipping it over y. So we know that we are going to take this image and we are going to flip it over and down into quadrant 3 over x. So I'm going to start with letter K. It is one space above the x-axis, so I'm going to put it one space below, and I'm going to label it K prime. I can also see that the L is one space below -4, or above -4, so I'm going to put it one space below -4 and call it L prime. And then if I just want to count from K to J, I can see there's 2 spaces, so I'm going to make sure I go 2 down from K to put my J prime. And then I'm going to connect all my points on the grid. And then I go down below and put in my new coordinates. So J prime is at -1, -3. K prime is at -1, -1. And L prime is at -4, -1. And now we're going to move over to the next image. You can see that JKL has not moved positions, but the directions have changed and they'd like you to reflect across the y-axis. So let's highlight our y-axis, and then we're going to take that same figure and we're going to flip it over y. So it's going to go from quadrant 2 over into quadrant 1. So I'm going to start with letter J. J is one space to the left of +3, so I'm going to place it one space to the right and label it J prime. I'm going to do the same thing with K. One space to the right of 1 and label it K prime. And then I can see that L and K are 3 coordinate plane spaces away from each other. So I'm going to go 3 over, place my dot and call that L prime, and then go back and connect all 3 to make the right triangle. And now I can simply label my points. So J prime is 1, 3. K prime is 1, 1, and L prime is 4, 1. Let's take a look at some new images that are not just in one quadrant. It is in multiple quadrants on the coordinate plane. So our first one, QUL says to reflect the figure across the x-axis. So you're going to highlight X, and you're going to see that point U is reflected and it is already over that x-axis. So what do you do with it? You actually leave it as your central focal point, and I'm going to highlight that. And so the only points that are actually going to get flipped are going to be Q and L. So I can see that Q is at 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces up and 1 space over. So I'm going to come right down below and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces down, 1 space over, and I'm going to place my Q and call it Q prime. And then I'm going to do the same thing with L. So I'm still going over the x-axis, but I'm using that point U as kind of the central point of reflection. And I can see that that L is obviously on the very outside of the graph. And then I can see that from point U, it's actually 1, 2 spaces away. So I'm going to go 1, 2 spaces down and place my L prime. And now I can connect all 3. And I have my figure reflected across X with a point of reflection. So point U is a point of reflection. I still need to go in and put my new primed. Now Q obviously has a new point on the coordinate plane. And that point is 1, -5. U's point hasn't changed, but it is part of that second shape, so we are going to label it, and so it doesn't go anywhere on X, but it goes down at -1 on Y. And then we have L prime, and L prime is at +5, -3. We're going to do one more, same shape, except again, we're not going to flip over X, we are going to reflect across Y. So you're going to highlight that y-axis, and you can see that point U is directly on the axis, so you are going to use that again as your point of reflection. We're going to start with point Q. We can see it is 3 spaces up and 1 space over. So we're going to go to the exact opposite across over Y and call that Q prime. And then we're going to do the same thing with L. We can see that L is 4 and 1, so we are going to go, actually it's 5 and 1, so we're going to go 5 and 1 in the other direction, and that's L prime. And then we're going to connect at that point of reflection, and we're going to write in our new ordered pairs. So Q prime is -1, 3. U prime stays the same, but we still need to list it, so 0, -1. And L prime is -5, +1. All right, the last example that I'm going to do with you guys is number 5. Complete the following transformation on the coordinate plane and give the coordinates of each image. So you can already see there are 3 parts to this. So we have one original image and we have 3 images that we are going to put on the coordinate plane following the directions given. So part A says, reflect the image over the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight Y for now. And I'm going to color code this so you can follow along. So if we're going over Y, that means we're flipping to the right in quadrant 1. I can pretty easily see that J is going to go in the corner, A is going to go 1 space up, and I is going to go 1 space out from the axis. And then I can highlight and connect my points and write those in right away. So A prime is at 5, 1, J prime is at 5, 5, and I prime is at 1, 2. Then I'm going to switch colors. And our second set of directions says reflect image AJI prime. So you're going from that purple image and you're going to go over X. So I'm going to delete that and I'm going to highlight my X axis. And now I'm flipping down into quadrant 4. So I can see I is 2 above. So I'm going to go 2 below. I can see A is 1 above. So I'm going to go 1 below and it's right there on the edge. And then J again is in that corner when I flip it downward. Connect all 3 triangular points. And then name your new ordered pairs. So A double prime is 5, -1. J double prime is 5, -5. And I double prime is 1, -2. So you can kind of see there that the only ordered pair numbers that changed were the Y numbers, just went to negatives versus positives. All right, the last thing it asks us to do is translate. So we're going to go back to what we did yesterday. Translate A double prime, J double prime, and I double prime 5 units left and 1 unit up. So from each of those, so I'm going to start with I. So I is going 5 left and 1 up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 up, and then I'm going to label that. Let me change to red. A is going to do the same thing. Make sure you label that triple prime. And J is going to do the same thing. Connect all 3 points. And then put in your new ordered pairs. So A is actually at the origin 0, 0. J triple prime is just down on Y, so X gets a 0. And Y is -4. And then I triple prime goes left, so 1, 2, 3, 4, -4, and -1. And so you should have 4 images, 3 of which you drew in yourself. You are, again, not going to do big ideas classwork. You're simply going to go into Canvas and make sure that you have your check completed for today's work.